Get ready for the greatest roast of all time, the Roast of Tom Brady, a Netflix live event happening May 5th. Hosted by Kevin Hart, the 7-time world champion gets his cleats held to the fire by famous friends and frenemies on an unforgettable night where everything is fair game. Tune in on May 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific time for the Roast of Tom Brady, live only on Netflix.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
The following is an exclusive presentation of News Radio KMAN, your home for K-State athletics. It's game time. This is The Game on News Radio KMAN.
Well, yesterday the Chiefs got better. Today the Cats got better.
Big time.
From sharpshooters to speedsters. NFL draft and the transfer portal. People just going all over the place. Meanwhile, some jabronis have become some victims here. Looking at you, Buffalo Bills.
Woof.
You trade back twice. You don't pick up any extra picks. And the 2 picks you give up, those teams go wide receiver, and guess what the Buffalo Bills need? A wide receiver.
Yeah, right? What was the thought process?
You're not stockpiling anything. And you give up a draft pick, you trade with the team that has burned you multiple times with a trade you made, 7 years ago? And now you're 0-3 against that team you traded with in the playoffs.
I almost guarantee you it had to do with cap. They did not want to have to spend the amount of money that you have to spend on a first-round pick, so that's why they traded back twice. But they are not looking very good today.
They only traded back 5 spots.
Who looks worse? The Buffalo Bills or the Atlanta Falcons?
Oh, the Falcons for sure.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I kind of like the chaos.
Really?
Well, I'm a big Michael Penix Jr. guy,
Gotcha.
Despite his injuries. Yes, picking up Kirk Cousins and signing him to a 4-year deal.
You like that?
That's what Michael Penix Jr. is saying to Kirk Cousins. You like that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now there's some pressure. Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Oh, it's going to be Kirk Cousins.
Well, the fake quote going around today was that pick was basically 28-3.
Oh, Jesus.
From Kirk Cousins.
No, I'm not a big fan of that one. Welcome to the game. Mitch Fortner, Troy Coverdale, and AJ Shaw. So we got a lot to cover today from K-State basketball, K-State NFL draft, Chiefs NFL draft. I want to play some blindly ranked 5. Lots of news to get to. But leading off the show, I wanted to bring in a special guest. Works here at the radio station. He's full-time.
You're
Wears
complimentary
a lot of hats.
with utilizing special.
Well, it was just like, a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. He was on the show as a board op. And
time flies.
Wears a lot of hats, and now he's basically the director of our severe weather station or severe weather unit.
Meteorologist.
I wouldn't go that far.
We're working on it.
Big Steven Schaefer's in studio. The reason we have him in is because really throughout the day, he has been following what could potentially come a very hairy weekend for us when it comes to severe weather. So, Big Steve, you've been following this all day long. You've been gathering information to try to determine what exactly we could be facing this weekend. We could have some very serious severe weather in our area tonight. So I thought this would be the right thing to do, take the front of this show and just cover what we could potentially have this weekend. So I'm gonna give the floor to you, Big Steve, on the potential severe weather this weekend.
For sure. So I attended a webinar earlier today with the National Weather Service, just kind of going over everything, both tonight, tomorrow, Sunday, everything, just kind of looking into our weekend here. As far as today, we may see some storms. We may not see some storms. It just depends on if the conditions are met correctly for severe weather to fire up. I mean, I know areas north of us, like in Nebraska, they're going through a lot of bad weather right now. Areas south of us, like towards Fredonia, has a tornado on the ground down way south of us right now. So I don't know if that's really an omen of what's to come tomorrow. But as far as tomorrow's concerned, that's where our main concern is with severe weather. So we're at basically high risk for all of the hazards across the board. That's tornadoes, that's hail, that's wind, that's rain. Could even see some flooding as well. And these storms probably won't move like super, super quick, but still quick, like to the 30, 40 mile an hour range of movement across the area. I can't emphasize this enough. This could definitely tomorrow turn into a very serious situation. The National Weather Service pulling out all the stops already, going, hey, stay weather aware, be very alert tomorrow going through your Saturday, because once storms develop, they're saying that tornado risk could pop up within an hour of development for these storms. And so the time frame right now, 3 p.m. through midnight, so basically a decent chunk of tomorrow. And we might not even see just one round of the storms. There could be multiple rounds of these severe thunderstorms.
You're not just talking one line of storms. There could be plenty behind it.
Like we have
developing
stuff that
on top
could be coming from the west. We have stuff that's coming down from the north. We could have stuff coming up from the south. Like basically hit from all sides but one.
Because right now, the Weather Channel is doing live coverage right now of a tornado that's been on the ground for a while. That started, around Lincoln, Nebraska, moved its way north of Omaha, and it's very clear on radar that it is a tornado, and a serious one.
To the extent that they issued a tornado emergency for that storm, which those are rarely issued. Like, those have to meet all sorts of criteria before that kind of a warning can be issued. The fact that it's gotten that far means that is a very nasty storm up there in Nebraska right now.
One of the tricks there is that you've also got a major power-producing plant at Fort Calhoun, and it is in that area that tornado continues to move towards.
And right now, I mean, looking at the radar, so it's already been documented as well. If you heard the CBS update, there had been touchdowns of tornadoes in the state of Texas. Really, there's a line that stretches from about Austin right now, kind of bows almost around Kansas, like through Missouri. Even though there's a little bit of a line through Kansas. You mentioned the tornado that touched down in southeast Kansas, which there are still 2 tornado warnings in effect. Bows through Illinois and all the way up to almost Kalamazoo, Michigan. It's one pretty solid line that is producing some very serious situations. So you're right. I mean, this could just be a taste, even though it's not affecting us right now. Right. It could be a taste of what we do have coming tomorrow.
And absolutely. And that's something that I can't stress enough, especially with how upfront the Weather Service has been all through today, because I've been monitoring all of our special media chat rooms that the general public can't use and everything. And just, they are hardcore talking about this, like, hey, tomorrow is more than likely going to get really, really dicey. You need to be weather aware. So definitely take the time today if you're listening. Maybe you just got off work, you tuned into the game here. I would stop by the store, pick up some emergency supplies. Just be ready to go for tomorrow in case it inevitably happens.
All right. Anything else we need to share?
Just stay tuned right here to News Radio KMAN, any of our Manhattan Broadcasting family of stations. We'll keep you up to date and informed. Of course, I wanted to mention Pottawatomie County right now under a tornado watch until 9 o'clock tonight. Just stay locked in and just be weather aware.
While we're talking about the weather here, it's also, and Mitch brought up the storms in Texas, it's also playing a factor this weekend now in terms of K-State's baseball schedule this weekend with TCU, as they're going to try to squeeze in 2 tomorrow and get away from the potential of severe weather on Sunday. So already tomorrow afternoon, it's going to be a live afternoon in the building. We know this even before we get to the weather.
I'm not sure if the weather in Fort Worth, if it's supposed to be as hairy as like what Central Texas is getting, but did see on the forecast, and Matt Walters made us aware of that down in Fort Worth, where K-State's about to play 3 against TCU, that, it could get a little bit dicey with thunderstorms and stuff like that. So we're still playing the schedule today, 6:30 for the first pitch. We'll have pregame as soon as the show wraps up at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, instead of playing Saturday, Sunday, it's now going to be a doubleheader on Saturday. That's the plan for now. Things can still change, but now there's not going to be a game on Sunday. They're going to play a doubleheader starting with a 12:30 pregame here on K-Man tomorrow with first pitch after 1 o'clock.
Right. The first game is as scheduled, which was a 12:30 start for our coverage tomorrow, 1 o'clock first pitch, and then they'll just go 45 minutes later for the second game.
Actually, the Sunday game was 1 o'clock.
Sunday game was 1 o'clock.
Now they're going to basically move the Sunday game to the same start time on Saturday.
Sorry.
Anyway, you're
We get the point.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, one final point with all the severe weather stuff that I did want to point out. The National Weather Service has been using phrasing for tomorrow for all of our severe weather risks. Strong tornadoes are very highly possible through any supercell or anything that manages to get going as it comes into the area. So again, can't stress this enough. Stay weather aware tomorrow. Keep an eye on your phone. Stay locked into K-Man or any of one of our other stations, and just make sure you have multiple ways to receive warnings should things start to really break loose tomorrow.
Well, you've really taken the lead on keeping us just around here at the station up to date on what's happening with severe weather, so I really appreciate your work. And if we do have a tornado warning in our area, that means we'll go to a supercast and we're going to take things over. Even if it has to interrupt K-State baseball, we're going to come on air and we're going to keep you second to second, minute to minute, up to date on what is happening in our area with severe weather. So this is your home for the latest up to date information on severe weather here on News Radio KMAN or one of our other four stations.
And that's award-winning coverage, by the way.
Yes.
We have won awards for this coverage, so you're in good hands.
Steven is an award-winning weatherman. He's got you
won
covered.
Two.
Yeah, Mitch won 2, Troy won 1. So we definitely have you guys covered.
All right, so again, hit us with the timeline once again real quick.
So again, for right now, and of course this is subject to change because weather in Kansas is always bizarre, especially in the springtime. Right now, the current timeline is basically any time after 3 o'clock in the afternoon all the way through midnight. So that entire stretch, the second half of the day, we could see these storms pop up.
All right, Big Steve. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you
for having me
your
on
work.
the show for a moment.
All right, let's go ahead and take our first break. We'll reset. We'll get to the sports, and when we come back, let's get to K-State basketball because they have received a commitment from...
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
That Villanova Sharpshooter we've been talking about. That's next. Once again, a big thank you to Steven Schaefer for stopping by to give us the information about potentially very serious severe weather that we may be might be having tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening, even tomorrow night. You said 3 p.m. to midnight. Tomorrow is when it could really pick up and tornadoes possible in our area with these storms. And right now, around the Omaha area is where it's really affecting the Midwest. Nebraska has issued a tornado emergency. They've had one on the ground in residential areas. They're showing right now on the Weather Channel some very serious tornado damage just north of Omaha. So there might just be a taste of what could come more to our area here tomorrow night. So we were going to do our best to keep an eye. We're going to do our very best of giving you the up-to-date information. So keep it locked here to News Radio KMAN for your severe weather coverage. All right, let's get to some K-State men's basketball news. This was a commitment we had been expecting for a few days, despite some strong efforts from Nebraska, Texas A&M, Georgetown. The Cats have landed Villanova transfer guard in Brendan Hausen. This is a big get, guys. Mm-hmm. It adds to what has already been a very strong transfer portal class for K-State with Doug McDaniel and C.J. Jones. McDaniel from Michigan, C.J. Jones from the University of Illinois, Chicago. It's very simple to talk about Brendan Jones and what he will do for K-State. He'll not be looked at as a ball handler. He'll not be the guy running the offense. He is going to be a spot-up three-point shooter. He is going to be waiting for that pass, and he's going to be ready to shoot the three for K-State. Guys, this is very exciting. Now, it's been documented. We have talked about Doug McDaniel, who was a 36% three-point shooter over his first 2 seasons. C.J. Jones this past year was almost 38% from three-point range. And Brendan Hausen this past season was 39.5% from three-point range.
And you have to remember, they shot 32% K-State did as a team from 3 last year, so all of those guys shot better from 3 than the entire team did.
The leading returner was going to be Arthur Kaluma. Kaluma has declared for the NBA draft. Now, the tone of that announcement says that he's for sure gone. I'm still sticking with what Jerome Tang told us on Monday, and that was that Arthur will most likely take all the time he is allowed to enter the NBA draft process, get all the information. He could still stick with the draft. I think there is a slim chance that he would come back. He does retain his year of eligibility left, so I'm not 100% in on saying Arthur Kaluma is officially out, but I mean, there's a good chance that he is. And the last draft projection I saw with Arthur Kaluma was that he would be a second-round guy. Also, R.J. Jones has entered the transfer portal, and we found out today that Quez Glover has entered the transfer portal. So, I may speak on that first. With Quez, I do feel bad for his this past season. He did not get to play, injured. He's unfortunately been an injury-prone point guard. He was going to most likely be a starter for K-State. He would have really taken some pressure off and the weight off the shoulders a little bit of Tyler Perry, having to really, be the general of that offense for a lot of the season. I thought Quez was going to be a special guy. I understand it. Everybody that's transferred out, none of them surprised me. Quez Glover is not a surprise. Jerome Tang, with the addition of Doug McDaniel, has really stacked the point guard position for K-State. You remember David Castillo is coming in. Dede Ames is still with us. And then R.J. Jones leaving. He was going to come in and be a three-point specialist. This past season, R.J. was 29.8%. He was averaging just 9 minutes a game, and he does have that upside. He does have that potential. But when you basically are like K-State hitting the reset button, going a certain direction, really loading up on the shooting guards, and wings that you would consider like a guard, but will be classified as a wing, like a C.J. Jones, or like if they can land Khalif Battle, would be a wing. They're loading up on that. It's a very Baylor-like national championship approach to the building of a roster that you have to build up on the sure thing, an already established three-point shooter. Yes, R.J. Jones has the upside. He had just 1 year, but there's no doubt that his playing time wasn't going to probably change a whole lot in this next season. So there'll be an opportunity for him to go somewhere else and get more of that time he's looking for while he continues to develop.
What I see out of this is essentially the coaching staff, in looking at what the roster was this past season, recognized where the weaknesses were. And they have put their attention on overcoming those weaknesses, but it means that some of those guys that are on the roster are going to be in the position that an R.J. Jones was in, where his opportunities were beginning to fade with what that roster was looking like. One of the aspects that we've not even really touched on, and Brendan Hauser's a great example of it. Hausen, sorry. He's got 2 years eligibility left. Each of these guys that has signed on has 2 years remaining on their eligibility list. That is an interesting twist to this, in that it shows that there's some forethought in this not just being bringing guys in for a one-and-done opportunity. No, that they want to not only have them next season, potentially a year later as well, and develop this roster further.
And unlike C.J. Jones and Doug McDaniel, Brendan Hausen will have a very specific role. You remember Ish Massoud a couple of years ago, different position, obviously. He would be more of a rebounder, but what his major role was as a scorer was those pop-up three-point shots, and he did a very good job of that 2 years ago. but he wanted a bigger role, and he got that at Georgetown. Georgetown was not very good. He was a starter. Brendan Hausen will have a clear role, and that's to shoot threes. He's, like you said, he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. If you add up what Doug McDaniel, C.J. Jones, and Brendan Hausen have done in their 2 years, they have together shot 618 threes in 2 years, and they're shooting 37.5% as a unit. If you put all the stats together. They were 37.5% together this past season as three-point shooters. Like what AJ just told us, K-State was not a very good three-point shooting team. That really hurt them last year. But the lack of three-point shooting, that pressure was on Tyler Perry.
Right.
It was so off and on, and more often than not, unfortunately, it was just off. He just didn't have the shot, and it was a high volume. It was high volume numbers from Tyler Perry. With adding so many, first of all, Doug McDaniel, C.J. Jones will be three-level scorers, but they have the threat still there to shoot and just crush some threes. Brendan Hausen is just a three-point shooter. This past season, he took 100 threes. He took 16 twos. It's pretty clear what he does, but he's so good at it, he's going to suck in that defender, and that's going to really allow a Doug McDaniel, C.J. Jones, to do what they do best, and that's score at three levels without too much help defense coming their way, if you have Brendan Hausen on the floor. And that's really the point I want to get to, is because K-State is adding to three-point shooting. This could be a extremely fun season. That three-point shooting at a high level is not going to be on one person's shoulders. It's going to be on a lot of them. They're going to share that duty. They can crush it from anywhere on the floor with these guards and with these wings by what they're adding so far. I see Brendan Hausen as an insurance policy off the bench. He won't be hitting the shots every night, but his numbers say more often than not he can come in and hit 2 threes a game and not play a ton of minutes. That's a great insurance policy if you have one of your guys having an off night.
The other aspect of this is it takes away what the defense did on Tyler Perry throughout the course of this season. Remember, at one point in January, we were talking about how much teams were putting double teams on him. Almost as soon as he got the basketball in the forecourt above the three-point line. They knew what was coming if he had the opportunity. And K-State's offense stalled out at that point in many ways. This team was offensively deficient because there wasn't someone else who was as much of a go-to guy on the perimeter. Now you're looking at multiple guys on the perimeter. That draws the defense out and opens up the interior a little bit as well. It gives you multiple options that last year's team didn't have.
Yeah, just not enough guys that could hit the big shot.
Period.
And R.J. Jones, like we said, he could be a very special player. It's just that, right now, maybe the coaching staff sees it this way. I don't know this, but I kind of do. And that is, you can't have, when you're trying to really bounce back and get back to an Elite Eight or potentially a Final Four, you can't have too many guys in a young development stage on where there's a lot of hope mixed in with the development. That it's going to catch and it's going to take off, and then they're really going to come in their own and get comfortable and build that confidence and start crushing threes every night. So that's why you're seeing an R.J. Jones leave. That's because there's going to be a lot around him that's going to eat up those minutes, and he may not have enough to steal some of those minutes away and be a key guy depth-wise for K-State. I still think he's going to be special. Am I sad to see him go? I guess slightly, but I understand why he's leaving, and I understand why K-State's going in the direction they have to go. It's not necessarily maybe slightly a one, but it's a direction they have to go. They have to be a better three-point shooting team, a jump shot team. And I've said it many times, and I've said it already here today, that Doug McDaniel and C.J. Jones, why I love them so much is they can score at all three levels. They're very athletic players, and they're very good for the five-out offense. The defense that Brendan Hausen is going to attract is going to help them. even if he's not shooting the ball, it's going to help them by doing what they do best and take on a defender one-on-one. That's why I think that could be really fun. Now, of course, K-State, if they land battle from Arkansas, I mean, holy cow. Holy cow.
Yeah.
You're talking about an insane lineup, insane depth. Very exciting.
That may
you're
be,
talking night and day when it comes to shooting.
That may be the deepest K-State roster in decades if that happens. You're talking, potentially back into the 60s even in terms of a roster and depth.
I can't go back that far with my knowledge, but I'll trust you on that.
It's crazy to think.
Well, but the thing is, every really good team, maybe not every, but a lot of them, it's not like they're rotating 9 or 10 guys. It's 7.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe 8. 7 or 8. That's the rotation they're trying to build.
Right.
I would assume.
Right. No, I agree. It's just that the talent in that rotation is going to be above and beyond what we've seen here in a while.
Yeah, it's going to be more reliable bench. Yeah, It should be anyways. And David Castillo, I mean, I'm more excited than anybody to see what he can do in his freshman year. But, of course, Dede Ames and Doug McDaniel will be in front of him, I would assume. There now will be, and it still is, I mean, it's a priority. They need to get a big. They need to probably get a couple, potentially. Depending on what Arthur Clement decides to do, if he decides to stay in the NBA draft process, which he could very likely do, would not surprise me. Baba Miller is still out there. K-State has already had a number of guys visit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big fan of Baba Miller. The kid from Florida State, I think he would be such a solid fit for the offense, what they want to establish. Clifford Amori, he has visited. What is his decision going to be? If you've seen the signs around town, they would love to have him here. So there still might be looking for multiple guys to come in. So, the numbers keep going back and forth. To my count, I still think they need 4 guys to have a roster, a full roster, but we still may have a ways to go. I don't know if Tang necessarily is going to have this class done now in 2 to 7 days, and that was 4 days ago when he made that comment. That may not be the case anymore. I don't think it is. I don't think it's going to be done in the next 3 days. But already a really interesting and fun journey. The possibilities, I don't think you're probably one true commitment away from all right, now, especially when you look at who the next big might be, then you're like, okay, now you're thinking NCAA tournament, Sweet 16, Elite 8 type of team at least. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, again, very excited about Brendan Hausen. Very excited about him. Lost my spot here. Great three-point shooter. 17 minutes a game last year. He had at least 2 threes in 17 of his 34 games last year. He had 12 games last year with 3 or more three-pointers. When the kid is on, that's why I'm calling him the insurance policy. He can really back you up in case you're having a rough night. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, let's get back to let's start actually for the first time today, the NFL draft. A couple of cats could be picked up today. Where are they being projected? We'll talk about that next. K-State baseball tonight from Fort Worth, Texas. Cats and Frogs will have first pitch at 6:30. Pre-game at 6 o'clock right here on News Radio KMAN. Matt Walters will be on the call from Fort Worth. Schedule update for tomorrow due to weather down in Fort Worth. They're going to play a schedule today like I've mentioned, but now Saturday they'll play a doubleheader. There will be no game on Sunday. That Sunday game has been moved to Saturday. Doubleheader tomorrow will start at 12:30 pregame here on K-Man. And first pitch just a few minutes after 1 o'clock. That second game will start 45 minutes after game number 1. And down there in Fort Worth, if you're going, 1 ticket will get you into both games.
Make sure that Matt will have to make sure that he snags a couple of quick hot dogs in between. sustenance to get going for game 2.
Listen, this is a big series.
I know it's a big series.
Because you have Oklahoma and Texas playing each other this weekend. Oklahoma right now has a 3-game lead in the Big 12 standings. And we've had too much of this year, Oklahoma and Texas winning.
We've had that too much any year.
They finished top of the leaderboard. Texas won the Big 12 in football. In women's basketball, it was Oklahoma and Texas 1-2. Don't need baseball going this way.
Right.
But Oklahoma does have a 14-4 record. Oklahoma State is 2.5 games back. 12-7. Maybe it's a 3.5. I don't know. It's a half. There's a half in there because they haven't played the same amount of games.
Right.
Texas 11-7. West Virginia 11-7. Texas Tech 12-9, and then you have K-State, KU, Cincinnati, and Baylor tied at 9-9. So it's an opportunity for K-State to catch up on some games with Oklahoma potentially. We'll see what Texas can do against the Sooners. We are Texas fans this weekend, guys. We're Texas fans. TCU, by the way, 8-13 in the Big 12. Their overall record is 24-15. All right, let's talk a little bit of NFL draft. The first round complete yesterday in the Motor City, Detroit, Michigan. Wasn't as hectic as I thought it might get. There was a lot of quarterbacks taken 6, and they were in the first 12 rounds. That was interesting.
Not as many trades as what I think people were expecting took place last night.
And all the trades were like,
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, obviously the Chiefs trading up is interesting. They got the wide receiver they want. That's great. Xavier Worthy. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Well, what about the Cats in the draft? We did talk a little bit about it yesterday. Let's get you some more information on that. And that is tonight with rounds 2 and 3. I think there's a really strong chance you'll see 2 Cats drafted tonight. And it's predictable, right? You have Cooper Beebe, who is the third best guard available in the draft according to ESPN. And then you have Ben Sinnott, who is the 4th best tight end available according to ESPN, and the 93rd player overall. Cooper Beebe is 78th. We talked about their journeys yesterday, seeing the mock drafts come out. Ben Sinnott could go a lot of different places. His is very hard to predict because the experts out there say he could be a middle second-round guy. Or you could see Ben Sinnott picked up in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
It could be all over the place. I do not have a prediction for you. It's really hard to tell. I think Kansas City should draft him. If he is available, because Kansas City, the Chiefs will have a draft pick. They actually have a couple in the 4th round. If he happens to fall in that 4th round, which I don't think he'll drop that far, but if Kansas City can get a value pick there, you absolutely go for it. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they would trade up for him. But I feel like Kansas City should go tight end this year because of where potentially Travis Kelce is at in his career. Mm-hmm. He's about to turn 35 years old. He's in love with the most famous person in the world that outside of the President of the United States. I always say President of the United States is the most famous person in the world on all kinds of levels. But Taylor Swift is a megastar.
And honestly, there were already talks about, kind of winding down anyway. And then you put that jazz into it.
A lot of the experts about Cooper Beebe have pinpointed the 55th pick of the draft, and that is to the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins could use a guard. There's not a whole lot of teams out there that have a guard listed as one of their top needs, top 2 or top 3 needs. Mm-hmm. The Dolphins would fall into that spot. Another team that could use one, the Dallas Cowboys. But I don't think the Cowboys would go – I don't think they're going to go guard that early. So the Dolphins is a very popular pick. That's been by far the most popular pick when it comes to the mock drafts. I could see a scenario where Ben Sinnott is picked before Cooper Beebe. I don't think it's likely, but I think it could happen. It just depends on if somebody really is looking to go tight end early. But I don't think this class is looked at as the most stat tight end room with the kid from Georgia, Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers,
off
yeah.
the board.
Which, by the way, is interesting that he made it through the entire first round without even a sniff, honestly, because there was all kinds of talk at the end of the college season that was a guy who was going to be targeted very early on. I'm curious what played out there that knocked him back so far in people's minds.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you that. But what I do know is if you draft a cat, you're getting a well-coached guy that is very coachable, very good at what he does, very disciplined. Two different journeys here. Again, remember, Cooper Beebe apparently has short arms. So his life of ever playing a tackle position again, slim to none. He is going to be a guard at the NFL level. It's very clear. You know, Ben Sinnott, watching him grow and watching his workload change. And one of my favorite things about him is he can go out there and run any route you need him to run, with the exception of probably a go route. You're probably not going to see a tight end run many of those.
What? You come on, sideline? You saw him on the sideline some last year.
That's usually when he's coming back to get the the ball. And then
there were a couple I remember over the top down the sideline.
Well, I'll never forget, and I was at the game in Columbia this year, where Sinnott caught the ball towards the far sideline. He starts running down that K-State sideline towards the north end of the stadium. And I think he probably set the record for the shortest hurdling a player of all time and not touching the player.
Yeah.
He barely got off the ground.
Yeah.
It's because the guy was trying to tackle him low and dive at his legs, and it was a pretty easy play, actually, for Ben. All right, so again, the second and third round of the draft is tonight. Ben Sinnott, Cooper Beebe, good shot that they both get drafted today. I don't see Cooper falling to a fourth round. Ben Sinnott could fall to a fourth round. It depends. Ben Sinnott's position is a really tough one to predict. Cooper Beebe is a mid-second to third-round draft pick, but I see him as a second-round guy. All right, let's take our final break of the hour. When we come back, kayfabe, guys, is still alive thanks to Tony Khan. That's coming up next. If you're watching the NFL Network broadcast of the NFL Draft last night, you may have seen when they showed the War Room in Jacksonville a guy with a neck brace on. That guy in the neck brace is AEW owner Tony Khan, who is also in the front office of the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's why he was in the War Room. Well, if you missed Dynamite on Wednesday night, how dare you? You missed a good one from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, where a couple of guys beat up Tony Khan, including the Young Bucks that gave him a Meltzer driver, which is basically a pile driver straight onto the top of his head. And that's why Tony Khan was in a neck brace.
That was pretty funny when I saw that.
He was even on the NFL Network today talking about that moment.
Was he still wearing the brace?
He was still wearing the brace. And guys, that's why kayfabe and pro wrestling isn't dead. He is protecting the business, even though everybody knows what's going on. He's still doing his best work of protecting the business. Kayfabe means when something happens in wrestling, you also take it out to real life. That's why you don't see the good guys and the bad guys talking to each other in public. They're not traveling together. They're keeping their distance. That is kayfabe. That went away in the late 90s thanks to the Montreal Screwjob. I appreciate Tony Khan for his work.
Just classic.
All right, no reaction. Okay.
No, it's hilarious because you even asked going in just in the office yesterday what we were going to see out of Tony Khan.
I thought it was hilarious. Like
That's tremendous.
Seeing the neck brace on, I was like, man, that way to go, Tony. Now all of a sudden, AEW has the best storyline in pro wrestling. All right, let's take our break. When we come back, the Chiefs in the draft. Plus, I have a nickname for the new K-State commit, Brendan Hausen. When we come back, your local news is next.